Officially, based on historical records and direct statements from the band members, White Lion has broken up and is not on hiatus. Even though the band's vocalist, Mike Tramp, is still actively touring and releasing albums performing White Lion songs. That project runs under his solo name or as a tribute, not as a comeback of the original White Lion lineup. Here is a detailed, chronological, and factual explanation of what actually happened to White Lion to avoid misinformation and hoaxes. 1. Official breakup in 1991. White Lion reached the peak of their global popularity in the late 1980s with the albums Pride 1987 and Big Game 1989. However, when they released their fourth album, Main Attraction, in 1991, the global music industry shifted drastically with the explosion of grunge and alternative rock, led by Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and others. Due to this shift in trends, album sales declined, radio support dropped, and pressure from the label and management caused tension within the band. After finishing the Main Attraction tour in Boston in September 1991, Mike Tramp vocals and Vito Bratta guitar decided to end the band. In several interviews, Mike Tramp revealed that the breakup just happened without any major fight. They simply felt their time was up, then parted ways at the airport. Mike headed to California and Vito returned to New York without ever issuing an official breakup statement to the press at the time. In one interview with Classic Rock, Louder Sound magazine on June 25, 2021, featured in a retrospective article on the end of the glam metal era, Mike Tramp explained, "People always look for a dramatic story, like someone stole money or someone slept with someone's wife. With White Lion, it was nothing like that. It was simply the end of the road. At the airport in 1991, it was just a handshake. See ya, Mike. See ya, Vito. That was it. No managers, no record labels, no press releases. We just quietly closed the book because we knew we couldn't fight the change that was coming." 2. Vito Bratta's disappearance from the music world. One of the main reasons White Lion could never reunite is the decision by the guitar virtuoso, Vito Bratta, to completely step away from the music industry since 1992. Several hoaxes and rumors have circulated about Vito's disappearance, but the actual facts were confirmed by Vito himself in a rare interview on the Eddie Trunk podcast on YouTube on February 16, 2007, and in Guitar World magazine on August 3, 2022, and August 24, 2023. He stated that what actually happened was family reasons. Vito chose to stay in Staten Island to care for his father, who was seriously ill for years until his passing. Also due to physical injury, Vito suffered a wrist injury related to carpal tunnel or tendon strain that prevented him from playing guitar with the same high-level technique for long periods as before. Then there was also disillusionment with the music industry. Vito grew tired of the exploitative business side of the music industry. 3. Band name dispute and legal status. In the 2000s, Mike Tramp tried to revive the White Lion name with new musicians, at one point using the name Tramp's White Lion and releasing the album Return of the Pride in 2008. However, this move sparked legal issues. Vito Bratta, who co-owned the legal rights to the White Lion name with Tramp, filed a lawsuit. The legal dispute was settled out of court in 2010, with Mike Tramp legally transferring full ownership of the White Lion name to Vito Bratta. Since then, Mike Tramp has been legally prohibited from using the White Lion name on his own for a new band or his solo tours. Mike himself admitted in an interview with the Austrian digital magazine Rockpit in February 2011 that his decision to form a new version of White Lion at the time was a mistake driven by pressure from promoters. 4. Current status as of 2026. As of 2026, White Lion remains officially disbanded. However, their music lives on through Mike Tramp's solo project. Mike Tramp actively tours globally performing White Lion's hit songs. He has also released a series of albums titled Songs of White Lion Volume 1, 2, and 3, released through late 2025-2026, where he re-recorded old White Lion songs with arrangements adapted to his current vocal range. Another factor is that the relationship between Mike Tramp and Vito Bratta has improved, and they now communicate regularly via email or phone regarding royalties and old documents. Still, both agree that White Lion will never reunite. "We will not be putting White Lion back together. We both feel that a reunion could never match or be better than the original White Lion back in the day," Mike Tramp told Metal Edge magazine on April 14, 2023. If you see concert or rock festival announcements, like the M3 Rock Festival, listing the name White Lion or songs of White Lion, that refers to Mike Tramp's solo touring project performing the band's legacy songs, backed by musicians such as Marcus Nand guitar and Jerry Best bass. The original White Lion, as a group entity, ended in 1991. Behind White Lion's breakup were several serious issues, including internal dynamics, poor business decisions, and mental pressures that were rarely covered by mainstream media at the time. Because Mike Tramp and Vito Bratta kept a low profile after 1991, many authentic details only came to light years later through in-depth interviews, such as on SiriusXM with Eddie Trunk and in Guitar World. There are a few more key details and hidden facts that the public rarely knows about White Lion's collapse. 1. The big game Wembley strategy mistake that became a turning point. Many people think the band broke up purely because grunge exploded in 1991. In reality, the mental cracks within the band started back in 1989 during the Big Game tour. In an interview, Vito Bratta recalled a moment at Wembley Stadium, London. At the time, White Lion shared a huge stage with Skid Row, who were extremely aggressive and raw, and Motley Crue, who were highly theatrical. In front of tens of thousands of hardcore British rockers, the melodic pop metal songs from the Big Game album felt soft and lacked energy on stage. We looked at each other on that Wembley stage and realized, these songs just weren't translating well live. Our music had lost its bite because we were following the record label's direction too much, Vito Bratta said. Mike Tramp said the same thing when interviewed by veteran journalist Mick Wall for the legendary British magazine Classic Rock, published on July 12, 2021, in a special article titled The Sad Story of White Lion, the band that was allowed to die. Tramp stated, "When we toured Europe with Motley Crue and Skid Row in late 1989, we played Wembley Arena. Skid Row went on first, and they were so raw, heavy, and angry. Then we went on, playing the sweet melodic songs from Big Game, and it just didn't connect the same way. The audience was a different beast. We looked at each other on that stage and realized we had lost our edge because we had listened too much to the record company. We knew right then that we had to make a change and get heavier on the next album. That same night, they decided to stop the rest of the tour, return to America, and demand that the label let them make a heavier album without interference." 2. The $500,000 project that died in 4 months. Their record label, Atlantic Records, eventually gave in and gave them an unlimited budget for the album Main Attraction, 1991. The album was produced with intense focus and cost a massive amount, at the time $500,000 United States dollars, about $500,000. Musically, this album is considered the best and most mature work from the Tramp-Bratta duo. Unfortunately, management made a fatal mistake by letting White Lion disappear from the music industry for almost 18 months during recording. When that lavish $500,000 album was finally released, music trends had completely shifted to the Seattle sound grunge. Within just 4 months, the label pulled all promotion for the album because it wasn't selling, making their huge investment worthless and hitting the band's morale hard. 3. The unique relationship between Tramp and Bratta, like the engine and the passenger. Publicly, Mike Tramp and Vito Bratta looked like a tight songwriting duo, like Steven Tyler and Joe Perry of Aerosmith. But in reality, their personalities were polar opposites, which slowly eroded the band's foundation. Mike Tramp was an ambitious Danish immigrant, a hard worker who handled all of the band's operations. In his memoir, Tramp called himself the engine that forced Vito to move. Vito Bratta was an extremely introverted homebody. Throughout White Lion's peak years, Vito still lived at his parents' house in Staten Island. He was never interested in the music business, publicity, or the rockstar nightlife. When industry pressure hit, Vito mentally withdrew, while Tramp burned out from being the only one pushing the band forward. When Tramp said, "I give up, there's no more White Lion," at the airport in 1991, he was shocked that Vito agreed immediately without putting up any fight or defense at all. 4. The mental toll on Vito from being labeled an Eddie Van Halen clone. A rarely known psychological aspect is the mental pressure Vito Bratta faced from music critics. Because his guitar technique used incredibly clean two-handed tapping, the media constantly accused him of being an Eddie Van Halen imitation or clone. These accusations weighed heavily on Vito and frustrated him, because he felt he had his own blues and classical influences. There's one emotional moment that few people know about. During the main attraction recording sessions, Eddie Van Halen unexpectedly dropped by the studio and sat on top of Vito's amp. Eddie listened to Vito play live and gave him incredible praise, confirming that Vito had his own style and wasn't an imitator. Vito admitted that after Eddie left the room, he went straight to the bathroom and broke down crying. The mental weight and validation he finally got directly from the maestro hit him all at once. Vito Bratta revealed this in Guitar World magazine, published on August 3, 2022. Vito explained, "I took a lot of heat from people saying I copied Eddie. It got to the point where it affected me. But when we were recording Main Attraction, Eddie came into the studio. He walked in, sat right on top of my amp, and watched me play. He looked at me and said, 'You're doing great. You've got your own thing going.' After he left, I went into the bathroom and cried. I just broke down because the weight of everyone saying I was just a clone was lifted off me by the man himself. But by then, I was already becoming numb to the whole industry." However, that recognition came too late. The industry had already left Vito disgusted. 5. The name transfer letter and Mike Tramp's tears. When the legal dispute happened in the 2000s because Mike Tramp used the band name without permission, their relationship got heated through lawyers. But the dispute didn't end because of a harsh court ruling. It ended due to a heartfelt personal conversation. Vito called Mike and said something that changed Mike's perspective forever. "Mike, I don't hate you. I just don't want to open YouTube and see a video titled, White Lion Live, with someone else playing the, When the Children Cry, guitar solo that isn't me. White Lion was you and me. That's our history." Hearing that, Mike Tramp cried on the phone, realized his own ego, and voluntarily signed the legal documents to transfer the name rights in honor of their shared youth. Mike Tramp revealed this directly on March 23, 2023. He shared the story during the promotional run for his Songs of White Lion album.